Hello everyone. So in this section, I'm going to be starting with a little explanation on the NVC, which is the Nonviolent Communication by Dr. Rosenberg. And then this will be followed by a discussion. After the discussion section, there's going to be a final closing with a little demonstration of a video, right? So let's begin with this. Another vital aspect called nonviolent communication, right? So it's called NVC and it's given by Dr. Rosenberg. Why is nonviolent communication important? Because, like we've been discussing, right? How am I coming across and what is it that I'm picking, right? Becomes very, very important, right? So, what this communication advises, right? Like what they propose is to witness and express ourselves as non judgmentally and uncritically as possible with ourselves and another. So, the four aspects that they really advise, right, is observation. So, what is it that I'm seeing? What is it that I'm hearing? What is it that I'm picking up, right? Without, without judgment, one of myself, of the situation, and of another, right? And what do I feel? How am I feeling? Again, not saying this is good, this is bad, okay? But just recognizing not the tone, but really the emotional quality over here, right? And then what is the need that I have, or what is the need being conveyed by another, okay? And then finally, how can I make my request? Like, right? Can I ask, this is what I would like you to be or to say, right? And can I also hear the request of another with as much empathy as I possibly can? So, this is why it's called non-violent communication, because we're trying to express ourselves in the best way, not just for ourselves, but also for the other. Okay, thank you. Today we're going to be discussing on communication. Okay, so we all know communication, but then do we really know it? And we're going to try to tease out communication in sport and the vital aspects. So that's going to be Priyanka and my task today with you all. And so hi Priyanka, welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
And so let's first start with what comes to mind, like is it an example, a player, or what comes to mind when we just think of communication?
Probably like a lot of things are coming to my mind. There are teams which are coming to my mind. There are individual players, who are coming to my mind. The ones who actually communicate what they want, what they feel like, without the fear of judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're able to express what
Yeah.
they want. So that is coming to my mind. And body language is coming to my mind, like how subtle cues from your body communicates a lot of things which you cannot communicate verbally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Priyanka is talking, if I just sit
Yeah.
exactly without expression,
I think I'll get scared.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's exactly.
Yeah.
And because then and like that's what we see, right? Like
Hmm.
sometimes when interviews and it's supposed to be a stress interview, you don't know what's going on, right? Whereas when I'm open, I'm probably nodding my head, and she's picking up cues of okay,
Like I feel like okay, I can open up, I can share.
right,
Yeah.
I feel safe. And I think it's so vital. So when we look at sport especially, it's got so many nuances, so much of pressure, and how our message is being communicated. So we look at not just the good, but we'll also look at the not so good examples. And sometimes I feel like those examples actually, when we work through, is how our role, especially as psychologists, how we can aid in not just the team's performance, but be that bridge to probably the support staff or the coach.
Difficult job, because I think for us, learning to communicate is a important skill that I think psychologists have to develop, right? Because everybody comes with their own perceptions. They have their own understanding of how things will move forward. But I think how you communicate can be taken very well, or it can backfire also,
Correct.
especially when it comes to like sensitive issues.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for us, I mean, with experience, of course, all these things will be developed to a very large extent, right? Because
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I know that even in my career, I've experienced certain things where, okay, this did not go well at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And few
Yeah.
things went very well.
Right.
So I think now we have the skill in terms of, okay, what kind of personality does a coach have and how do I have to communicate it?
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also sometimes when you're working with, like, let's say even the parents group, right?
Yeah.
It's what's the line? What's the tone? And you know, when do you need to use what? Like, you know, the boundaries also come into play.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to bring in this example, and I thought like we could really look at it because especially like our role, I think I like how you brought that in. This team would lose from a winning position. Okay, the more their lead, and you know, it kind of reached this place where they got this dubious status of, oh my god, you know, they lose from a winning position. And you know, so as usual, you know, they came in quite late. It was like almost to the fag end. And I like to get to know at least to whatever extent possible every individual there. So you know, I was meeting people, and then what actually happened was, there started to be one tagline. Okay, can you guess that, Priyanka? I just said it.
No, like it's like we have to lose to win. Is it something like that?
Very close, you know. They were like, ma'am, hero nahi banna hai, hero nahi banna hai, ma'am. And trust me, it's been a few years now, so it's not any of the recent. So and it was very sad, you know, like hero nahi banna hai, because sport is so much about, you know, hero. I mean, like, you know, it's the hero's journey, right? And like, you know, the first time I heard it, I'm like, okay, what does it mean? And you thought, okay, maybe this is a younger player, and you know, and I hadn't done that much work, very honestly. So I was also trying to, you know, get into the nuances of the game. And this became a tagline. Okay, I still didn't understand, because now see, the thing is, you know, this is a group which probably did not know what was psychology, who's a sports psychologist. So suddenly, but you know, they would say this. Okay, and then you know, the important point was, this was a really high profile, you know, the coach was the who's who, captain was doing exceptionally well, even in that league, vice captain was doing well, but as a team they were not performing. And there were also small groups. Okay, so then so you know, I was meeting everyone, and then I said, oh, I also want to meet one of the key players. Okay, and they said, no, you know, leave him out, like uska kuch nahi hone wala, like, you know, and they kind of had made him the problem.
Got it. Yeah.
And I said, he may not come, that's okay, but I want to meet. You know, let's make that effort. He came, okay, and he came, you know, typical like communication that we're talking. So what does this mean? And very tight jaws. Okay, so I don't want to, though I've turned down. But what I appreciated was he still came, right? And then as soon as he came in, he's like, मुझे कोई problem नहीं है. I don't have any issue. So I said, yeah, I know. And that took him by surprise. Because, you know, without being told, they had made him this bad guy.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, I know. And I said, but you have so much influence with the team. And trust me, that session was probably one of the longest. And I said, I want your help in understanding what's happening and how can we work with this group. He was the one who told me finally that, you know, it really was a management coaching issue. Because, you know, when we do the analysis, so it was a little old school. So players would get pulled up. So every player was like, so once they reached a certain lead, I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
So that's where it became, I don't want, because when someone gets pulled up, maybe it was once or twice, but the message which went out like, is shame, no? I don't want to be picked this way.
Yeah.
So, मैं कुछ नहीं करने वाला. So that is why they would freeze as a team.
Got it. Yeah.
Right? And so with this guy, so and you know, so that's how it went. And I'm like, okay, how do we work together? And that evening I went for training. Okay, and what happened was, then I was somewhere there, and he called up Dr. G. you know, and I didn't hear first, and he called out like practically everyone could hear, and he's like, Namaste. So I said, oh, Namaste, kaise, and all that, okay. And then like the support staff were like, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. I treated him like a normal human being. There's a difference between you are the problem and there is a problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And you know, it's been one of the most heartening you know, cases for me. And of course at that you know, it was fag end, and then I also told them, listen, this is a management issue. And you know, one of the first things they said was, oh, should we change the coach? And I said, no, maybe he doesn't know, you know. It was a little conventional way to, you know, a lot of coaches use that, no, like challenge the players or pull them up. I said, no, he doesn't know. And the next season they came back and started performing really well.
Wow.
You know, and for me, I think, you know, like these are moments which stand out for you, no? Like for me, it was really that inclusion of that player who was so key, was really vital.
Yeah.
And you know, like, and I want to also connect this to elephants, you know, Priyanka, you know, I work with elephants because a lot of time in the wild, right? Like, you know, when they say, oh, a wild elephant has entered, it's because we've encroached their space. And they label them problem. Or worse, they label them rogue. So, you know, so, you know, like what ecologists really say, and like, you know, those who work, is like, there's a problem here. Let's not make one individual beat an elephant as the problem, you know. So, what do you think of this? I really thought this was a nice example to look into.
Yeah. I think it's so important because, you know, even when we look at constellation, we want to include the excluded. Because
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the more you keep excluding somebody, that person can have a huge impact on the system.
Right. Yeah.
So, absolutely. So, basically, I think including, giving everybody the same level of respect and including everybody and thinking that everybody has a right place on the team is so important.
I love that. I absolutely love what you're saying because I was just also pondering on, you know, what you said about how when someone's excluded, sorry, the energy they're actually drawing out, no? And also, like if this is the field, like if this is, you know, let's say the dining area, you're going to see one individual literally being pulled or pulling themselves out, but then they're also drawing so much energy.
Absolutely, because see, when one person who's excluded, you know, that person may be giving out the vibe that, you know, anger or that frustration.
I think, you know, what you're saying is how we were, you know, I was in the previous section, I was talking about mirror neurons and how we're all affected by each other's energy. So, and being especially when it's a influential member, and this person for whatever reason has pulled, you know, they're actually pulling down. Right. And I remember another league, you know, there was this player who was a little like, let's say, cribbing type, but was extremely smart. Okay. So I was part of the leadership group and I said, let's give him something that can, you know, keep his energy channeled in the right manner. And it worked like magic.
Wow. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. And like if you go back to this player, right, like the minute, you know, he got included, it's inclusive, it became a team. If not, they were just minor fragments there. And how do you expect to perform?
It's very difficult. And you know, although we say that focus on what you really need, these things really influence the way you go out there and perform. Because it's somewhere running on your mind. Like I also remember, like for example, when we are going out to teach a crowd, if somebody keeps giving you this judgmental look, that you're drawn to that particular person in terms of, okay, like I consciously make an effort that, okay, I don't want to look at this person. I want to look at somebody, you know, who I feel is warm and safe. So, but it's a conscious effort, but it really plays on your mind when you're looking at them. So it's the same.
That's a brilliant example. Yeah, that's a really nice example. And also, you know, I'm just wondering if we can touch on the coach athlete, you know. maybe we should talk about a positive example here and then
Yeah.
bring in.
I think some of the coaches I've worked with, have been so empathetic, so kind, and so compassionate. And it's such an important skill, especially when it comes to coaching,
Yeah.
right?
So relational coaching is what you're saying.
It's very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally touch players' heart because we've been having a lot of heart
Yeah.
conversation. The way they're present to the player when the player comes up and has an issue is so beautiful because they're literally like, yes, I hear your pain, I'm here for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're using that particular incident and saying that, yeah, you went through this, so now
Exactly. Yeah.
that doesn't really happen because
Yeah.
they know that, what, I'm going to be more encouraging and more supportive towards your life experience.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I've seen has shifted and brought an immense confidence in a lot of
Oh,
players.
definitely. I remember, yeah, one of the other leagues I was working with, the head coach was, it's not just about this tournament, but how are we grooming, especially the young athletes, no? The young ones, how are we grooming? And I think it's a life experience for them to take. So, we used to have combined sessions, especially, COVID year and all that. It was online and it was so heartening because, like he would actually, give a nickname for the athletes, okay? And it would immediately just tease up this, and you know how nicknames are. I mean, more than him giving, like he would ask athletes and they would like, oh, I was called this or I'm called this. And somehow, when there's a little banter, when there's a little playful, and also share your life experiences. In fact, Priyanka, he was one of the coaches who actually told me, have you heard of Benny Brown? And I'm like, oh my God, like really, Benny Brown is, someone who's worked a lot with empathy and resilience. And that's something that Australian cricket in particular, apparently, and I think then the English teams were bringing in. And I see that percolating now here. So that's really heartening, very heartening.
And I remember this one coach that I really worked with. He was saying that I want my players to be vulnerable.
Wow. Yeah.
He said, that, right? That they bring themselves, they're so authentic and they bring themselves out there because you brought in Brené Brown's work and I really love her work so much.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly. Because I think it brings to mind back about how, teams which can bond, right, are the ones who can then feel safe to open up. Because conflict is an essential part. Right? It's okay to have a tight body language. Like a lot of times, when athletes come to us, but if I do this and go, okay, fine, I'm not gonna, then there's gonna be no breakthrough. But then you understand what is it, what's their need, what are they trying to communicate. And I think that's where it's very important to go beyond just the conscious. Because a lot of times, I remember even this young athlete who had a head concussion. When I asked them, like, how are you feeling? I'm doing good. And then when you see them, they're like, oh, this is happening, that's so I'm like, why did you say I am doing good? And they just say, ma'am, but that's just how I say it. So then I asked, I'm like, okay, what would you like me to ask, like where I can get an indication. So then we worked out that, I'm gonna ask like, okay, hi, how are you? And then, how are you feeling? What's happening? Then they're like, because when they say I'm good, right? Like every time you kind of go, okay, if they're doing good, maybe they don't need an immediate session. Or, and
absolutely.
I think, it's I think culture, no, Priyanka? It's culture plays such an integral role. Like it's like, I remember reading somewhere that, someone says, how are you? Right? Like I say, how are you to you? Or if you say, and then sometimes I don't even wait for your response. It's just become like a very, okay, it's just a term that you're just using. So, to really be present, to, like with what Priyanka is saying, for me to be present and then go, yeah, and this is what. If not, there's going to be no communication. Then, you're saying one thing and I'm just patching up and saying something. There has to be, what is she trying to tell here? And what do I understand?
Absolutely.
And I think I want to bring in Dr. Rosenberg's work, it's called NVC in short, Nonviolent Communication. And I know when we talk about sport and nonviolent communication, we would think about not injuring. But let's remember what Gandhi ji said. It's the ahimsa in all ways, non-violence. So, I find it very interesting because it's about observing myself
Hmm.
and the other without judgment.
Hmm.
They talk about 4 quadrants, 4 aspects. Second is again feeling. What am I feeling? What is the other feeling?
Hmm.
Again, with no criticism or judgment. And then, what is the need being, or what's my need and what's the need of the other
Hmm.
being communicated? Because if without having that openness, it's not really not possible. And then finally, it's about how will I communicate my need,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how will I respond to, let's say, your need. And I think that's a really brilliant model, no?
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful, because a lot of times, because you're bringing in this model, what I've also seen is players feel something but they are not able to express that need.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
maybe they feel that, what, we need more rest, but then they will say the other thing. They'll say that, no, no, we'll train hard, but the need is something else. Their body
yeah,
needs the rest, but then the way they're expressing it is something opposite, because
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I hear you, and also there here we will look at why isn't this need being expressed?
Hmm.
Like fear of what? Being probably
Yeah.
judged, or is it that, thinking that this one, a particular person is indisciplined or not turning up?
Yeah, or maybe
Um,
you're weak because your body
yeah,
can't handle the kind of
yeah.
stress. Yeah.
And, how my image. I don't
Hmm.
want to. Maybe the coach is actually empathic, but then I don't
Hmm.
want to. And I know this young one of these young swimmers that I'm working with, who's going to go training for Asian Games.
Hmm.
So she was saying, you know, the training is of course, load
Hmm.
season. It
Hmm.
was like at its peak, and then she said one of the days I could hardly get up.
Hmm.
But then what I did was I woke up, I got ready, and I told the coach, look, I feel like this.
Hmm.
I can get into the pool, but I'm dead tired
Hmm.
practically.
Hmm.
And the coach said, go rest. She
Yeah.
rested and then came back for that evening session fully charged.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is right, but now this is someone who's obviously made it to the international already. So she has enough self belief. She's got enough courage in herself, and
Hmm.
she's probably worked through to say, look, this is what's happening.
Hmm.
But with younger athletes, what we see, are they able to do it?
It's very difficult. It's actually very difficult, because maybe sometimes also what happens is athletes are communicating and the stakeholders are not really understanding that.
Yeah,
I know of some of the athletes, probably they say that, I don't want to play this sport anymore. But then it's like, no, no, this is the family tradition. This has to go on.
yeah, yeah,
Or maybe they want to say that I want to play another thing. But still it's like, no, you're good at this.
yeah,
So
yeah,
somewhere that, we make the young ones feel that your needs are not important.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
not seen and heard at all,
Yeah,
no?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So that again, maybe makes us feel that, okay, I have to suppress myself. Maybe I'm incapable of making decisions. So these things end up happening.
yeah. You're absolutely right. As you're talking, I recall this is one of these young golfers.
Mm.
So, a significant family member had passed on, and she was very close. It was an elderly person, and there was a competition, and I remember the parent saying, you need to prepare her. She needs to win.
Hmm.
My heart almost broke because I was kind of going, this child has lost someone.
Hmm.
Yes, it's an important tournament, I agree, but I think what is first really essential is to process that.
Yeah.
And I remember she came in and she's like, I'm okay, ma'am, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then she started crying, and then she
Hmm.
said, I'm so sorry. And I said, I'm like, I'm glad you are, because that's a
Hmm.
natural response.
Hmm.
You care about someone. If not, you keep it bottled up, it's gonna happen in different
Correct.
ways. And I think that's what, as a parent, as a coach, as a significant support staff, I think what we need to realize is, how are we communicating?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because it's such a sensitive topic, I have seen some of the coaches handle it so beautifully.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
I mean, I know of an incident where this player's father passed away, and the coach got to know, and he called him, he cried to him, and he said that, you just go back to your
right.
family and be there with them. And that was so
Heartening.
heartening.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. and
definitely.
and I also know of coaches who say that, what, the team is of course important, but then what is important for you right now is to going back to your family and being there with them,
giving that person the option, right? Yeah,
the choice is so important.
Exactly.
Because and I also know of some of the coaches who said that even if it is the most important competition, I'll still give you this particular choice.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are some of the things we discuss in the psychology sessions. We are like, okay, if something like this happens, how are we going to handle it? How are we going to support this particular person?
Right.
And players, some of them say that, you know what, I need my space. Maybe some say that I need my support system, or maybe some say that at that moment I want to say what I want to, whatever I'm feeling.
And or not say anything at all at a particular point. That's a brilliant example. I think it's and I think also what that also communicates in the process is, I'm being valued as a human being, right? And that's something we always talk in sport, right? Like, in the initial chapters, your self-worth, which we hear from a lot of our role models, is it has to be beyond just achievement. Because you're not going to achieve, or probably not going to achieve every single time, but that should not pull you up and down. And I think the example that you were saying, what it really communicates is, then he doesn't have to worry of, oh my god, mera career ka kya hoga.
I still remember this one coach, who said to these athletes that, like, you don't give a deadline with respect to injury also. That also gave a lot of safety to the players, because they were like, okay, fine, I don't have to rush myself and get back to the sport, even though I have to perform at a high level. Otherwise, players pressurize themselves so much and say that, I have to get back. But then,
I think what you're saying, and I love because I was smiling because I remembered one of these young athletes who was injured, and her rehab was taking longer. And it was a combat sport, so knee injury, like me, but anyway. And the point was, she was such a good, budding potential. And trust me, Priyanka, like I remember seeing her in the beginning. They sent another athlete and she's just zoned out. But like the other one was in the recouping phase. So I thought the coach did really well to send someone else,
Okay.
So it was a lot of audio messages, lot of work with the physio. And then, they had a review with the doctor. And I remember it was still, she wasn't yet ready to return to play. And I think, the coach and the physio, and then what also happened was, unfortunately the physio, changed because the previous one was leaving with whom she had really connected. So this new one has just come in, and they were like, how to communicate. And and I remember it was the cafeteria, and it was a really full day, and I was just going to have, and they're like, did you talk to her? Did you talk? And I said, can I please finish my lunch? I'm going to see her post lunch. But I could see, they were also struggling how to get this message across. How do you communicate? But the coach made one very, very interesting remark, to tie up to what you're saying. And he said, even once she returns, no one can beat her. She's that good. I said, oh, is it really, coach? And then, we were talking, and then I said, aapke coach ne kya bola, what your coach said? And he said this, there was this $1 million light coming on her. Like, sach mein, ma'am, he said that. I said, yeah, this is the belief your coach has. And I know the physio is, tough, your rehab. But this is the belief, you will get back. And Priyanka, trust me, the next time I came, like the physio was like, you're not going to recognize her. And just, like previously she'd shrunken so much. Suddenly there was just this energy. This was, what the coach had communicated to me was very essential to put that, because that was that spark she needed. And then she came back. And I think that's a great example as to how, communication and especially the coach or an important family member or support staff can really have.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where our role comes in. Like, maybe he had said it, or he felt like, I shouldn't say this at this time, but to integrate what he said, and it really worked, in the best interest of the athlete.
Absolutely.
So this is great. This was a great discussion. Is there anything you'd like to add in the do you feel we need to add anything more? Or we're good to wrap it up? Yes. So this is good. I think we really brought it together in this way, and I hope you all can connect as to how what you're saying, how you're saying, your tone, your body language can really have an impact on whoever it is that you're communicating with. So thank you so much, and thank you, Priyanka.
Thank you, ma'am.
महक जाऊं मैं आज तो